Okay, so no open questions at this time, so we'll continue on and go into our TBEST transit system overview. Okay, so let's get into some of the nuts and bolts of what TBEST is and how it functions from more or less a component level. So at the highest level, in terms of a transit system, as a definition, it is a TBEST component to organize construction of known local or regional base transit operating and socioeconomic and land use conditions, perform model validation, and develop future year network and socioeconomic applications. So it's basically the framework that TBEST uses to manage everything that it does, right? So, and then it houses all of your input data that would go into creating your TBEST model validation, your application scenarios, and then perform the analysis that TBEST provides on all of those scenarios. So, so it really is four main components. So we're starting at the top. So we have the service area definition. We have the base year is number two, base year network, the model validation, and then application scenarios. So we're going to go over each one of those in detail in the following slides. All right, so let's first talk about service area extent. So this is the area defined by county extents where transit service is provided or may be provided in the future. So this is generally defined by a socioeconomic data package. So if you just look at the inputs, the data inputs here, we have socioeconomic and parcel data that are input here. So this is a package. So we'll really define that term in detail as we go on, but essentially it houses regional data. So for instance, for Florida, one of the downloads that you have for Florida is the entire state census data, parcel land use data, all combined into one download or data package, right? And then from there, you would, as an agency, say, well, I don't need the entire state. I just need my counties, right? I need Alachua County or, Broward County, whatever it might be as an input. And that would define your service area definition or extent. Now, keep in mind when you're defining an extent, you want to consider where you have existing service and where you may have service or connections to service going outward, right? So it may not be just Broward County if you're Broward County Transit. It might be you want Palm Beach County, you want Miami-Dade County, and maybe even other counties up into Martin County as well, if you have service going up there or you're connecting to service from there. So just keep in mind, it's the full extent of your full area of service and where you may have service in the future. So outside of Florida, I mentioned that the Florida downloads are available. Outside of Florida, users can create their own data package using the TBEST socioeconomic data configuration tool, which allows you to select any state and then the counties within the state that you would like to import and create as your socioeconomic data package that would define your service area extents. Okay. All right, so next is the base year network. So the base year scenario represents known transit service, socioeconomic, and performance conditions. So generally, this is generated from your agency GTFS, and you would define network operations and settings such as fare, stop special generators and amenities, bus capacities, operation costs, and interline routes, among other characteristics as well. You would integrate your TBEST socioeconomic data with TAZ growth rates. So it is optional to do that. So essentially, if you look at over on the side here, let me get my, so essentially we're looking at this base year network, and you can see the inputs in terms of data inputs over here. GTFS goes as an input, your transportations, fares, interline routes, special generators. And then on the right side, you have your model structure, which is your FDOT TBEST Land Use Model 5.0. You reference that to your base year network, and you build in all of your service, your existing service into your base year network, and you're able to run this model to basically forecast ridership for your base year network. Of course, you're going to validate it as part of the validation process, but you also do run the model on it. So this model structure comes with TBEST, so it installs with it. So basically, you just pick up and start using it. All right, so that defines the base year network where we're trying to just really get at existing conditions, right? So existing ridership conditions, performance conditions in terms of observed ridership, et cetera. All right. So next is model validation, where this is the incorporation of observed route level ridership and socioeconomic growth rates to lock in known transit service markets and travel demand at any point in time. So this is where we input our observed ridership and we validate our ridership estimation model using our observed ridership. So essentially that is, the task here is to create a fit between what TBEST would predict without any observed ridership factored in, and then create that fitting with the observed ridership so that when we are creating our application scenarios, it is the fitting is applied out into the future for application scenarios. So this is a fitting mechanism for ridership estimation to make sure that it works and matches your performance relative to your observed ridership. Okay, and the fourth component are application scenarios, where basically you're able to create any number of types of proposed or alternative service and socioeconomic conditions within TBEST. So basically that would include new route analysis, route realignments or consolidations, scheduling changes, stop and or amenity analysis, service guideline evaluation, fare changes, no build scenarios. You can change headways. You can remove routes. You can do 10% socioeconomic growth. You could do fare changes. So lots of different applications that the TBEST model is sensitive to, that whenever you forecast ridership, it will be sensitive to all these changes that you have implemented in your TBEST application scenarios. So of course, a lot of this is driven by your planning tasks. So, of course, you're going to get lots of requests for, hey, what would happen if we implemented this new route and gave it a certain level of service? What would it cost? How much ridership can we expect? What kind of performance? Those are the types of things that you can easily answer with TBEST. So just keep that in mind as you're building these application scenarios. You may get requests from all over the place, obviously within a TDP or a COA, but also grant applications, or someone in the planning department may want to test some different routes that they're thinking about, or service planning as well. And so you're able to respond to those requests and quickly create alternative scenarios and give a full workup on what it might look like in the future for these proposed service changes. All right, so just some notes on collecting TBEST socioeconomic input data. And this is basically set up for either inside of Florida or outside of Florida. So it just is a reference for you. If you're inside of Florida, you have a much easier time getting started in TBEST, where a lot of the data is pre-configured for you and the downloads are available. Whereas outside of Florida, we do make it pretty easy on you using the tools that are available for everyone. But you may have more work to do, especially as it relates to land use data, because the parcel data is a little bit difficult to configure. Whereas in Florida, we have a statewide data set that's provided by the Department of Revenue. So we're able to use that data on a statewide basis. Whereas outside of Florida, I'm not sure how many states have statewide parcel data, but basically it's usually on a county by county basis. And so you would have to go and get that parcel data. It has to meet the TBEST requirements for data input. So there's a section in the TBEST user guide that describes all of that. So you can just reference the requirements for that. But most everything else is pretty available to you as well. And so as we go through here, a lot of the original setup of the socioeconomic data, is described here. A lot of the tools are available. And sometimes both the Florida folks and outside of Florida will have to do some data development of their own locally to complete the TBEST model validation. All right, so here's some operations input. We'll note here that inside of Florida, the 2024 TBEST Transit System download is already available. You can download it anytime you want. Whereas outside of Florida, you would have to create your own, transit system and scenarios to start, whereas they're already pre-made for you in Florida. Okay. All right, so let's no questions, so we'll just keep rolling along.